Yes, guys, welcome back to another episode of the 3 More Points podcast. Today, Josh and I disagree on a few things regarding transfer targets this summer, and as well as that, we look forward to this mega football match that Chelsea have this weekend at the City Ground. Check out Josh's links in the description and enjoy the latest 3 More Points podcast episode.
I love how you're never going to change that intro. That is just what it is now.
Honestly, I think every creator should do something extravagant before they start recording. Otherwise, you just get the same old delivery every single time. But we are here with the energy. My face goes red. We get excited. But Josh, I am nervous to say the least for this weekend. First of all, how the bloody hell are you? Because you were at the game, weren't you? Chelsea beating Man United. You were there.
I was. What an emotional one. Do you know what it is? I don't know what it is about Man United games, but we tend in recent times to have a very emotional day. Obviously, we had the 4-3 victory, which Cole Palmer slotted home, a wonderful goal, which brought a tear to my eye. And then this one had so much on it. It was a nervous atmosphere in the ground, to be honest, George.
I was going to ask you about the atmosphere because it didn't sound great coming through the thing. But I also don't want to belittle Chelsea fans inside the stadium. I know that We Are the Shed are currently doing some great things to try and rejuvenate the atmosphere, let's say. But I called myself out because I'd been called out by hundreds of people in the comments, to be fair, of my 6 Things video. It was so negative. And it's true. I was exhausted. I was with you in London earlier last week, of course. That's why. But it was just about winning the game, isn't it? And I think in today's pod, I want to talk to you about... Obviously, this weekend is a 50-50. We know how big this game is. We're going to talk about that as well. But I think there's certain things that will need to happen, regardless of what happens this weekend, going into next season. Because, I mean, we've spoken about this as well, about the backing of Maresca or the not backing of Maresca, as the case may be. When I look through the comments, which obviously I do read what you guys have to say to me and to all of us, and I do not see... I mean, obviously things can change if we win this weekend. People could be like, okay, but there's just something about the way that we play football that doesn't seem to fill people with confidence, does it? Was that why it was so nervy?
To be honest with you, I think at the moment what it is we've got a team of young players that cannot necessarily close out games. And I think you've seen that with final records and, in the way that we haven't been able to sort of get a trophy in recent times. And I think that worries a lot of people because all of these fixtures, the last 3 have been cup finals, to be fair. And then this one really, it feels almost like a playoff. Doesn't it? It feels like a championship playoff. And I feel in those kind of games, anything can happen, especially when you're away from home. So I think we've got every right to be nervous. And I think, look, when you've got a team of real youngsters and you've got a manager that isn't necessarily the most proven in terms of winning anything, to be honest with you, I think that sort of feeds off each other. And you get this sort of like general, unsure, feeling from the fans. I have to say, there were nearly boos at half-time against Man United. Like, I heard some boos. And that would not be the first, and it probably won't be the last time under Enzo Maresca that happens, bearing in mind his first half performances and the lack thereof. Yeah. So, mate, I think going into this game, I've never been more unsure that Chelsea can actually get a victory. Do you remember back in the day, we would follow Chelsea and we'd be like, we're going to final. We go, even though we're underdogs, we're up against it. We still rate us. And it's so funny, we obviously had the anniversary of 2012, didn't we?
Yesterday 13 actually. Years to the day.
I know,
unbelievable.
Crazy,
what a moment.
Crazy. We could not be further away from that. So, mate, we go into it and it's pretty exciting. I just had a look at the bookies odds, George. Have you seen these?
Throw them at me. Come on.
We are Chelsea at 2.1, Forest at 3.3, so we are the favourites for the game.
What is it for a draw?
A draw is 3.75, so even more unlikely than either of those two outcomes. Which is, I'm very surprised about that.
I mean, I think about it like this. Okay, you've got one team that is not used to being in this position whatsoever. But in the same breath, you could say Chelsea are also in the same boat there because these players, the majority of them at least, haven't been in matches of this magnitude before, which means that for me, I think that we are and Nottingham Forest are both in the same position. Do I think that the Nottingham Forest crowd will have something to say about the game? Absolutely. I really hope that doesn't interfere with any of the referees' attempts to referee the game of football, which in our league, unfortunately, I don't think we're blessed with an abundance of quality in the refereeing positions. But do this Chelsea team, I think this is the big question that everybody is going to be spending hours asking themselves and each other all week long. Do Chelsea have enough about us to go to a hostile atmosphere to overcome what has been a disastrous year away from home? We have only won 1 of our 8 away games. Now, is that because we're a young team? How many times are we going to say, oh, but we're really young? That's not an excuse anymore. It's an explanation, but it's not an excuse. We have to change that narrative this weekend. To win 1 in 8 away games is a disaster. And if you want to be a top club competing for top honours, you can't have spells in the season where you win 1 in 8 away from home. And at home, we've been amazing. To praise that home form, it's been fantastic back at the Bridge again. We are somehow making that stadium a fortress once more. But this away form is seriously concerning. And I think that's why, instead of nerves, it's more like, oh, why have we got to this point where it's not already in the bag? Do you know what I mean? It should have been.
It should be. Yeah, it should have been. Like, you look back on those Ipswich results. I think in your video you mentioned the Brentford result as well, that 0-0
Yeah, that was a
draw.
bad one.
And yeah, mate, look, there's been so many other opportunities. I mean, look, the fact that we did that table where we took the bottom 3 teams out and we were way higher than we originally were. I also looked at the XG table and we're 3rd in the XG table or expected points table as well. So look, mate, it's interesting. I do think that the lack of finishing has really hampered us this season, and I think we should have won games, really. Do you know what is a clear example of that, actually, is the reverse fixture. I don't know if you remember this. It was 1-1 in the reverse fixture.
Yeah.
They actually got a man sent off. It was James Ward-Prowse. Do you remember he did that ridiculous handball on the halfway line?
Let me actually get that up as well at the same time, so I can.
Yeah, because I've got it up in front of me, mate. The team sheet and the bench. Like, do you know what? The team sheet was relatively standard. It was Sanchez, Gusto, Fofana, Colwell, Kukurella, Caicedo, Enzo, Noni, Cole Palmer, Jadon Sancho, and Nicholas Jackson. Like, that's a pretty standard team. Not much has changed, really. But on the bench, we had coming on Nkunku, Felix, Neto, Mudryk, and Tosin off the bench.
Wow.
So, I mean, and also, by the way, unused subs, we had Vega, Disasi, and Lavia. I mean, that feels to me like that could have been 5 years ago, let alone, at the start of this season. I cannot believe how much has changed. Now, one other thing that I will say on the away record, because I know you brought that up, their home record isn't great. So
I honestly thought when I saw Forest the other day, I'm like, these lot have actually just lost it. West Ham are awful, let's be honest. Yeah. I had some belief after they went to Old Trafford and they won, but like, who doesn't go to Old Trafford and win? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Man United are awful.
Oh, literally. But then you look at their home record, right? They drew against Leicester, who nobody should be drawing against at all. Yeah. They lost to Brentford. They lost to Everton. And then before that, fair enough, they were getting some victories. They were winning at home to Man United. They did actually beat City, but that's when City were still unsure. Put it this way, mate. On the 1st of April, they were 3rd. Right?
Yeah. So they've kind of fallen off completely,
and their form, and you look at our form, we've got 4 wins in 5. I mean, we're the form team, aren't we? Do you know what I mean?
We are, but it's also within those. This is what I wanted to talk to you about today, because I can't help but keep thinking that we're getting okay. Let me actually playing this out plain and simple. Reece James crossing to Mark Kukurella in those positions. How long can we rely on this being the way that we win football matches? Mark Kukurella arriving into the box. And also, my other question is, right, why does it always seem to be, it has to be both the fullbacks in positions like this for us to actually get the right crosses in? Because we do cross a lot, but it's only when it's like, that picture, I'll put it up on the screen again. I spoke about it in a video after the 6 things, where Kukurella is in the box. Reece James is kind of like inside of Pedro Neto, basically. Depends which way you hear that. Could have sounded awful. But he's inside of Neto. And why is it when Neto is the one breaking it and crossing the ball into the box. Why can't we score from these moments? I think what's so concerning is that we're relying so heavily on Mark Kukurella. And, you know, obviously we've spoken a lot about players that we should buy this summer. But against Forest, right, I don't think we can score a goal by crossing the ball into the box, because I think Murillo, Milinkovic, they will literally eat that up. So what is Sancho going to be the man to break them down?
Potentially, yeah. Because I as much as I love Tyreek George, and you know, we are both sort of huge exponents of the academy, and we absolutely love these boys. I think in a game like this, I would go the complete other direction, and I would go for experience, and I would go for players that have been there and done it as much as possible. That's why I'd probably be playing Trev in this game. You could definitely make an argument for Tosin as well. But I would like to see, you know, a player of Jadon Sancho's experience and know-how being in big games. You know, he's been in huge matches, right? I think having him there would be really good. And I think having Neto reprise his role as a centre-forward, I think is the way to go on this one. He's industrious, he presses really high, and we're gonna need that. And also, I think in moments where, you know, we are going to have to be transitional, I think he can really, you know, break and do that. And I do think having all three of those players, Sancho, Madueke and Neto, is going to be the way we go. My worst nightmare, George, is that we go in at half-time and it's 1-0 or 0-0, 1-0 to them or 0-0, because then the pressure's all on us. You know, they're at the home ground. I mean, really, this is a free hit for them. You know, they can go out there and play the same way that they played all season, try and hit us on the break and score goals. They're going to be open as much as we are, but you know, we've got a lot more to lose. I mean, the fact that we could still finish in the Conference League places, mate, it honestly gives me nightmares. But yeah, like I think that's the way we're going to have to go. Weirdly, mate, I really want to know your perspective on this. I think there's also an argument to play Reece James as a right back, but also play Romeo Lavia. And then I think we have to have a conversation about who then drops out. Who, if you're going to do that, who would you be dropping?
The only player that can go out, but this is why this is a great discussion. If that's the case, then Enzo Fernandez needs to drop out, because you don't drop out your best player.
No, George, that's not the answer.
You think no?
That's not the answer.
You're going to drop Cole Palmer, aren't you?
Mate, I've thought about it, but I'm definitely not going to. I've thought about it, but I'm not going to, George. What I'm going to be doing is the player that we've just been discussing, Jadon Sancho. Let him come on, at 60 minutes. Let's see Cole
Sancho
Palmer play the right. Well, let's see Cole Palmer on the right. Noni Madueke's been playing off the left. You know, Pedro Neto is there. Cole Palmer can, and let's be honest, right? Maresca has to tweak the system a little bit. Cole Palmer can be from the right-hand side, but taking in the half space like he used to under Pochettino, and played incredibly well there. Let Reece James bomb on. Kukurella inverts into the back three, and let's have the width on the right-hand side. Or, if you don't want to do it that way, and you want Reece to be the one that fills in, let Kukurella bomb on, and put Cole Palmer on the left-hand side. Do you see what I mean? And have Noni on the right. Yeah,
I think I quite like Madueke on the left. I didn't think he was very good against Man United. I thought it was kind of a nothing performance from him. But I've been asking for Palmer to be on the right for so long. Yeah. The only thing I suggested with Enzo Fernandez is that Maresca seems to just be completely against putting Palmer back on that right. So I think for me it is you're absolutely spot on, non-negotiable, that James needs to play at right back. I thought we saw that quality. It was a dead game of football, really, and then a brilliant moment from Reece, and then now a trademark Kukurella header wins Chelsea the game. But other than that, it was nothing, really. Onana made a couple of good saves, but that has to happen. But also, Lavia and Caicedo must be that midfield pivot for this game, because there's one thing that Forest do so well, you alluded to it already, is the counter-attack. And I'll tell you what, mate, if Callum Hudson-Odoi scores a goal to put Chelsea in the Conference League again, I don't know if I can watch the final next week. I think I will need a sabbatical from anything to do with round balls for about a solid 5 days, which rules out anything for the final.
Yeah,
I'm joking, of course. But
I could see. Yeah, exactly. He's definitely joking. I could see it happening. To be honest with you, I mean, look, there's definitely an argument to say that was one of the worst sales that we could have possibly done. And the fact that Bayern Munich were in for him for so long shows that he still has quality. And let's be honest with you, the quality level probably has dropped off from where Callum Hudson-Odoi was, or the potential certainly was. But there's still an absolute player in there. And also Elanga on the other side, I'm also very worried about. He's absolutely sort of like flowered and become a much better player after leaving Man United. What a surprise. So their pace on the wings is worrying. And also, I think it is almost like the kryptonite to Chelsea in that our wing-backs want to be bombing on. If you have a transitional winger that gets the ball in a wide position, you're effectively already drawing a central defender out, and then you're fucked. So, and then you've got players like Morgan Gibbs-White who are going to be playing it in. So I do think we need to tweak the system and be a bit more conventional. But I don't think you can be dropping players like Enzo Fernandez for the reasons that we described. Like, I think the level of experience and quality,
with an illness, no?
Yeah, he has, and he missed. They were meant to be doing this not book signing. They were meant to be doing this sort of shirt signing, weren't they, for the
Megastore today?
Shirt, and he was meant to be there. So yeah, let's let him rest. I don't think conjunctivitis, mate, is gonna.
There was a huge clap of thunder outside that was literally just hit outside the house. Yeah, but no, But the thing is, conjunctivitis affects your eyes, doesn't it?
It does.
And he didn't look like he knew he was passing to the other day. I mean, it looked like something was going on. And then when he passed the ball, I'm like, well, you clearly can't see very well, can you? And I've said that as a bit of a joke, but it was true. So if he's not got rid of that, then is this too big of a game to be playing a player who's not 100% can't see properly?
I think conjunctivitis with the antibiotics and whatever, or the eye drops, I think you can get that sorted in a week, to be fair. I think
let's just hope someone's not tampering with the antibiotics like someone was tampering with Mudrik's.
Still haven't fucking heard anything on that, by the way. He came. Nope. By the way, I watched those highlights. Do you remember we were talking about the highlights of the previous game? I watched those highlights.
And he scored.
And he did a wonderful assist, wonderful cross. And then Kunku should have scored. But my God, do we miss a player of his ability? I mean, ultimately, he's the perfect player here. We get the pace.
You're on about Mudryk?
Yeah, I am, mate. He's a fucking
You absolutely
legend.
Love it. I know
mate,
you love him.
This is the thing, though. You've got your bee in your bonnet for Victor Osimhen, who...
I do.
I am actually, after coming on this podcast and saying the other day, I think that's a slam dunk, I am a bit more worried about that now.
In what sense?
I'm not sure in that. I just keep hearing them talk about the wages and how the wages are really high and he's not moving from them at all. And then, I'm hearing he'd be very happy to go to Saudi, and then I'm just like, oh, fuck that.
I mean, this is the window for me where if he doesn't sign for Chelsea now and he goes to Saudi Arabia, then I think my little bee in my bonnet disappears, because it's like, if you really are just literally going to play football in Saudi Arabia because you want to get paid that amount of money, fair enough, mate. Not going to judge you for it, but I'm not going to keep every transfer window, because he'll go to Saudi Arabia, make loads of money for a season, and then be like, oh, I'm still Victor Osimhen and I'm still in my mid-20s and I still think I should be playing in the Champions League. Can I go and do it again? Do you know what I mean? Do it now. Come to Chelsea now. Saudi Arabia money's not going anywhere, mate. You're not going to all of a sudden... Even if Chelsea killed you as a striker, which it wouldn't be the first time that's happened to a striker... But you're still going to get the big bucks. You're still going to get those big dog paychecks in Saudi Arabia in a few years' time, and do it then.
Yeah,
do it then.
Yeah, I that makes complete sense. I think ultimately he will be forgotten. I mean, look, do we even think about Ivan Toney anymore? Are we even having a conversation about Ivan Toney? And I mean, I think you were a big fan of Ivan Toney when you always that.
I liked him.
Joey liked him. Yeah,
Joey was a big fan of him. I thought it was a good option. I wasn't as sold on him as I was Osimhen. But I think with Ivan Toney, it became quite clear quite quickly that Saudi Arabia was going to be his choice. But the thing is, especially now, I want to talk to you about the striker market a little bit, because obviously every Premier League club this summer is going to be looking at spending. Manchester United are probably the only ones who I think might struggle big time because they've got no sellable assets, really.
Yeah.
But Man City are obviously going to be spending big. They want Florian Wirtz. Liverpool are also really keen on Florian Wirtz. So I don't think City and Liverpool are going to go for the outright number 9s, which leaves you with Aston Villa want Ferran Torres, which is fine. They can have him. He's 42 million quid. You've got Arsenal, who I think will probably be massively in for Victor Gyökeres, which is what we're hearing right now. But if you were Chelsea, right, surely you're looking at these price points because Gyökeres wants less money than Osimhen. So Osimhen is probably the main guy. I'd say Isak's probably the main guy, but if Chelsea don't get Champions League, Isak ain't going nowhere. So surely if Gyökeres' wages are lower, you're going in with Arsenal for him. Do you think this weekend's game literally will determine whether we end up with a flipping Delap or a big dog?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, right, if we look at the merry-go-round of transfers, I think, depending on what happens in the final, I think Delap will probably go to United, and he probably will go to United anyway. So that's United striker sorted. I think Arsenal will go for Gyökeres, and I think really they'll start pulling their financial might around, and they really need a striker. So I think they'll probably outbid us, even if we bid for him. And then you got, Osimhen, who I just think will take the money. I get that vibe now that I just think he'll take the money. And then really that means that we'll go for Sesko probably, to be fair. And I don't, out of the options, this is a really weird market, mate, because in a weird way, I don't massively care who it is, to be fair. Out of those options, I wouldn't be as excited about Delap. But if you said to me, Gyökeres, Osimhen or Sesko, I don't really care. Like, they're all good players. Like, they've all got a lot of potential.
I think Sesko could become a really good player. I just don't want to. I think this season we have seen the result where we are right now today. We're in a Conference League final, expected, feebly knocked out of both cup competitions domestically. Yeah. Not expected. No one's happy with that. It was bad. Both Newcastle and Brighton defeats, awful. To be in this position in the league right now, I can see Benjamin Sesko. Talk to me about it in 3 or 4 years. If we do sign him, I don't think he won't develop at Chelsea. But why don't we look at what we've got here and be like, we've got enough developmental players, right? Every window for the next 3 windows, we could flip for a lot of money, a lot of players. So in terms of like satisfying the model of what they want to do, it's definitely working for them. Sesko is a player who is going to need a year or two to kind of figure out what he is as a striker, particularly if he comes to the Premier League. Whereas Osimhen and Gyökeres, you know exactly what they are. They're bullies, they're box-present strikers, they're out-muscle defenders, they score tons of goals, and you don't need time to develop those players. So if we sign a Benjamin Sesko, I don't necessarily think he pulls numbers significantly better than Nicholas Jackson. And I don't think there's many people right now that want to see Nicholas Jackson as Chelsea's starting striker next season. And there's definitely a world where you sign Benjamin Sesko and maybe he's not ready to hit the ground running straight away. But then what Jackson are you going to get? Do you get the Nicholas Jackson that started this season? Or the Jackson that's been there for the majority of the second half of the season? There's so many question marks.
I think you're being harsh. I think you're being harsh on Sesko. Yeah, because he's done it in international tournaments and also he's played in the Champions League and scored goals in the Champions League. Mm-hmm. So I think that's. I mean, he's got a better CV than Jackson, to be honest with you.
13 goals, 5 assists in 33 Bundesliga games, 4 goals in 8 in the Champions League. It's good numbers.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, mate. Like, we have this bias about the players that we see more often. And I think you see Osimhen more often because of the sort of star that he is and obviously the reputation that he has. And obviously we keep seeing, Galatasaray games because, quite frankly, we think we're in for him. And John Obi Mikel definitely thinks we're in for him. Yeah. But I think, the Gyökeres record is overinflated because of the league that he's playing in. I saw recently, I think he scored like 8 goals in the last 3 games. You might know better than me, but I think he scored that kind of record. But then I looked at the teams, mate, and fuck me, I can't pronounce one of the teams.
Me neither. Boa Vista, and then there's another one beginning with M.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is I think the step up for Gyökeres is again a level beyond. Even what Sesko has had to do. So, look, mate, we're gonna get a striker. Whether it's any one of those 3, it doesn't really matter. Now, if it's Delap, then absolutely let's have the discussion about whether he's good enough. Absolutely. But I think Delap will become a half decent player. He's not going to be a Harry Kane, but he's going to score a lot of goals in the Prem, whoever he goes to.
If they don't sign one of those top boy strikers, then I think that you have to invest in a really top winger. Then, for me, it's like I would rather buy Osimhen, and then I think about the winger position, and I'm like, well, all of them are really overpriced. Like I spoke in a news video earlier today about Anthony Gordon. Apparently Chelsea are interested in him. Newcastle probably will spend big this summer, but they also will probably have to sell someone. They obviously don't want it to be Isak. Gordon's had 6 goals this season. They want 80 million quid for him. Like, where do these numbers come from?
We're not hunting. Yeah, we're not hunting in the Premier League, mate. This is the thing. Like, ultimately, with all of our transfers... I think you've hit the nail on the head with that, by the way. Ultimately, with all of the transfers that we do, we are not going to be hunting for players that are already doing it in the Premier League. We're going to be out there in Holland, in France, in Italy, in leagues in which we feel that there's a advantage to us acquiring players that are undervalued and their wages are lower, and we'll be acquiring players from there. And look, mate, I have to say, from an acquisition of wonder kids perspective, I'm not worried really about the football club. I think the football club are doing exactly perfect signings. Estavio coming in, looking unbelievable. Quenda coming in, looking like a tank, looking so exciting. Do you see what I mean? Santos already through the door, looking really, really good. And yeah, we've had some failed ones like a Casadei or whatever, right? We've had some players that haven't worked, but we've got our money back for them, And really, this is the case in point for the wonder kid signings. You look at how good Santos is right now. If we got a bid for 150 million for Enzo, I would take it and I would play Santos every week.
Really?
That is how. Well, yeah. Why not? Why if that meant that we could then go and buy an Osimhen because you've got 150 million in the bank, I think you'd all do it. So the strategy and the approach is working. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it is. I don't think I agree with that. Fundamentally, I don't agree with that. Just purely because we're in a gamble right now at the time of recording this video on a flipping Tuesday afternoon where we still don't know if we're going to be playing Champions League, Europa League, or the Dead League next season. We don't know which one that is. So I think to have spent 1.7 billion and still be in that position, I can't wholeheartedly say it's working. But I do think
it's going to take time. But this is the thing that we don't recognise. And ultimately, football fans are so short-termist, and that makes sense. But their strategy... They said it, and it feels annoying because we want instant success. But they are growing a team which has quality and is going to get better. Petrovic is going to come back.
I do agree with that.
Like things like, mate, honestly, when you look at the club's age, like you look at the players that are on the pitch, I cannot believe how young they are. I saw a tweet yesterday. I think it was Malagusto's birthday. Malagusto's 22. Levi Colwill, I think might be 22. You've got players starting week in, week out for Chelsea that you wouldn't believe how young they are. These players, Levi Colwill got loads of shit this season. Loads of shit.
He's turned it on. He's been very good recently.
He's turned it on, mate. He's 22 years old. When was the was John Terry as good as Levi Colwill at 22? Tell me that answer.
Do you know what? I'm going to be very honest and say I can't actually remember.
Yeah. John Terry was probably coming off a loan from fucking Forest at this point. It might have been even just before that. I mean,
Levi Colwill is 22. That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah,
mad.
and let alone
been around forever.
Yeah, let alone all the other players. I think is Jackson 23 or Jackson's really young as well.
I mean, I've nailed my flag to the mast this summer. I'm like, get me a top striker that isn't 22, 23, stick him up front, solve the goal scoring problem, which would guarantee Champions League football.
Can I counter you just because I think everyone would agree with you. I think everyone would massively agree with you. But then let me throw a few players at you. Christopher Nkunku, Romelu Lukaku, Kalidou Koulibaly. All of these players were meant to even João Felix. All of these players are meant to come in and are elite, high reputation players, hit the ground running and improve us. All of those have been incredible drains of the football club. Incredible drains.
True. But then I think the Lukaku one kind of weighs that down makes what you're saying is true. But Lukaku one, I've always said it. There was something very weird about that. That for him to be, playing up to Chelsea for so long, 100 million, and then within a month of the season starting, doing an interview that is not going to get you good feedback. It's going to kick up one hell of a fuss. And then, why? Inter Milan were desperate for money at the time too. Funny that, isn't it? I don't know. I am saying it. You guys know I'm saying it. But Koulibaly was, again, a disappointment. And I think this is why sometimes you do have to navigate away from scouting across Europe and other leagues, because defenders, for example, someone like a Jared Branthwaite or a Mark Gurhey that have played in the Premier League, know the physical demands of the Premier League, would be a much better sign-in than going for someone of that calibre from that kind of league. But at the same time, I do think Felix is a prime example of how, instead of Chelsea going for the players we actually want, we actually need, Samu Omarodion was, and at the time I didn't actually think this, so I'll say it, I was wrong myself. I was like, why are we going for this Samu guy? But in the end, that would have made so much more sense than Felix. It might even have been the case that we're not even talking about a conversation about needing a striker this summer if Samu would have come in over Joao Felix.
I'd still like to bring him in, If we could, I'd still bring him in.
A good option, but how much is he going to cost now?
A lot of money, but also 19 goals, 3 assists in 30 matches in the league.
That's great figures, and some of the kinds of goals that he scores too are exactly the kinds of goals that we've been crying out for all season.
Yeah, Chelsea. literally. What I worry about, there must have been, for them to pull out of that deal and have to do what they did, something must have been hugely wrong with that medical, because that's what it got. It got to that stage, didn't it? He's got a contract till 2029 as well. Yeah, I mean,
so he's going to cost 70 odd million, isn't he?
Yeah, on Transfermarkt it's saying €50 million value, but yeah, it's always a pretty big outlay on top of that you need to get him. But yeah, mate, I think ultimately I would be more open, and I know this is so counterintuitive, and you might completely disagree with me, but I would be more open to getting a player that is halfway there, that has a potential that we pay less money, and if it goes wrong, then it doesn't completely blow up in our face. Because we can't... I think actually the Chelsea era recently has been marred by those level of signings that we think are going to push us on to the next level. They actually push us back. They actually push us backwards. So,
but yeah,
I know it's counterintuitive.
I do agree with it, but I also think it's... If you're going to keep chopping and changing the managers, which it looks like we're actually not going to do that this year, which... I'm actually kind of happy about it, as much as I still think it's boring. I can get over that if we get better and keep winning, I guess. Flippin' heck, I can't believe I'm still talking about this. But, I do think that because we chop and change so much, imagine if Nkunku wouldn't have been injured, how he could have played under Pochettino. Could have been a completely different player. Yeah. So now, the reason I'm so, get this guy, is because if you're going to keep the manager, you've got to get someone that's actually going to help him deliver results on the pitch. You can't go and say, oh, Chelsea want another, is he a number 9, is he a 10? The 9.5 position ain't a real thing. Get a number 9. We don't need another 10. We've got Cole Palmer, who's one of the best creators in world football. We don't need someone who can do that role. We need someone that can score a flipping header because we cross the ball every 5 minutes. We need someone that can drop and link up with Palmer so that, imagine having someone that could chest the ball down, roll it off to him, and then he's just there with his left foot, gracing it into the bottom. I want this so badly, and it would elevate us so much.
Though. Yeah, it comes back to this playoff. Ultimately, I think this summer, and do you remember there were briefings by Chelsea that we were going to do all of our business early, we were going to get it all done before the Club World Cup, we were going to be so early and quick in the transfer market. There are players that are already gone. Big Dino, your mate, gone to Real Madrid already, right? And we've missed that player. We've missed that player already because we didn't move quickly enough to be able to secure it. Arguably, he was always going to go to Real Madrid, and I actually, as a Spanish player, I don't really blame him. But the European Champions League football will be so important to what we do in the transfer market. Yeah. And really that will be the difference between signing even a Sesko, even let alone an Osimhen and a Gyökeres, to want to come to Chelsea because they're not going to want another season in the Conference League. They literally just won't do it.
No.
I mean, if we get Conference League football, mate, fucking write off all those signings, write them all off, and actually worry about whether Andre Santos and whoever wants, other players want to even be there. To be fair,
that's the thing. Even a Santos, like if he's got someone like an Arsenal come in, which apparently they were, apparently also that was all a load of nonsense. But realistically, there's no reason why a top club like Arsenal wouldn't want to go for Andre Santos. So if it's not Arsenal, it'll be somebody else who can offer that. Even Man United. Do you know what I mean? Man United could do with someone like him in their midfield. Yep. I think he's significantly better than Ugarte. Casemiro's on his last legs, having a great end to the season in Europe. But like, Chelsea got to be very careful here, which is why, I mean, to wrap this pod up, this weekend's game could be era-defining. Yep. Do you know what I mean?
It's got the Jasper Gronkiar about it, hasn't it?
It does. I mentioned that yesterday. I think that who's going to be that player too? Like, if whoever scores the winner, if we do win this game, like, you don't understand just how important that goal is, or maybe you do. Maybe they all do because they're on incentivized wages.
Yeah,
we didn't.
He was a sub player really. And
so give me an early week prediction, Josh. Tell me what's happening, and tell me who's going to be that guy.
I think I've got a weird feeling it might be Noni. Actually,
interesting. Do you know what? I'm not even joking. I was actually going to say him.
Were you?
Genuinely, I just see us scoring similar goal to the Mudryk one, and obviously we know it can't be old muddy Mudryk. So I think Noni is gonna turn up in this game too. And again,
he scored the goal against Forest in the first game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. He did. Yeah.
And that was
I think
we're
going to win 3-1 win.
Do you actually think that?
I think we're going to be 2-1 up. I think they're going to actually start trying to play because they have no reason not to. And as a result of that, and the fact they can't do that very well, we're going to then go and turn it on and score a third. The away end's going to go mad. I am going to break the cupboard. I'm going to punch the wall. I'm going to eat my blue neon lights. We're going to have a party. It's going to be unbelievable.
Right. I am going to tell you my prediction then.
Okay.
And it's not as positive as yours, but okay. I think it might yield the same result. I think this game might be a draw, and I think Forest might score an equaliser in the last minute.
No.
But I have a sneaky feeling that Man United are going to get something against Aston Villa.
Really?
I have a sneaky feeling that could also be a draw. And if that's also a draw, things remain as they are, effectively. Man City would go, above us.
Okay, yeah. I got a question for you. Imagine, it's not a question, it's just like end of the podcast. Imagine all the people.
Yeah.
Imagine none of the teams chasing for the Champions League places win another game.
Do you know what's so funny? Obviously, we got Man City tonight, right? Man City are playing Bournemouth tonight. That could absolutely be a Bournemouth win.
That's going to be 2-2, mate. I've smelt it.
Yeah, but that could easily be it. And then also, right, I love all the pundits because they go, oh, that Newcastle versus Everton game, Everton are going to be on the beach. They won't give a fuck. Newcastle have got a lot of injuries. They've got a lot of problems. They've got, potentially no Isak. They've got a lot of issues in and around the pitch. And then Everton coming off that victory, obviously, at Goodison Park, the last match there, they're saying that Everton are going to be on the beach. It's Moisey. Like, anything could happen in that game. So yeah, look, I think the fact that all of the pundits are writing off all of the other results as if all of the other teams are just going to cruise to victory, I think is an interesting one. Even with Man City, Fulham on the final day, that is not an easy game.
Tough
that
game.
Is not
very
that
tough.
Is not
away
an easy
from
game.
Home.
Yeah, so mate, the Champions League race is well and truly on. I don't think I'm going to sleep from now until Sunday with the level of nervousness and the blood pressure going on. But I love your positivity.
Purely for your health.
But yeah, I like that you're doing that. So you're effectively saying, are you saying we're going to finish fifth?
I'm saying we're going to finish, yeah, because I think City will get 4 points. I think they will beat Fulham, and I think they'll draw at Newcastle tonight, and I think Newcastle will win. I don't think they'll win. They'll win comfortably. I think it'll be 2-1 Newcastle, and I don't see Man United because they're either going to be hungover as hell from beating Tottenham, or they're going to be like there's no point even bothering for this game. Or it actually has the opposite effect. They lose to Tottenham and they're like, right, we're going to go to Old Trafford and at least for the final game of the season, we are sorry, but we'll give you this one.
This is the thing. Can you imagine if they lose the final, they go to Old Trafford and then lose against Villa? I mean, the atmosphere would be like horrendous. I honestly don't think they would let them lose that game. I don't think they
would resign.
He should resign.
I honestly think if they lose that final and then they embarrass themselves against Aston Villa, if I was Ruben Amorim, I would resign because I think you're in an absolute hellhole that I don't think is going to improve. Cunha's a very, very good signing. But even him, like he's a hothead in an environment that is incredibly toxic, as we've seen with Rashford, Sancho, and they're nearly relegated. Like, I don't really think... I think it's like... Have you seen that? I saw a funny tweet today. It's like that goat that's in someone's living room that tries to go up the chimney whilst the chimney's on fire. That's Cunha going to Man United.
This is the thing, mate. Like, that final game of the season, you know, obviously it will be Spurs and Man United battling for that 17th place. Who wants to be the worst team? I think that means something. I think that means something. Even if they win, either of them win, I think it still means something to them to not be that low down.
Well, hopefully Man United do beat Spurs so that we don't have a trophy for Tottenham Hotspur. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. And hopefully Man United can get their end of season trophy by at least winning a football match against Aston Villa. That's what we're hoping for. Josh's channel is linked in the description down below. We try and do these every week. We haven't for a couple of weeks, but we've been pretty busy, the both of us, together as well last week too.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.